Cindy?
Yes, ma'am.
I think I assigned you.
Yes, ma'am. I am working on your setup.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that was smooth. Smoother than I've been in the past. So good for me.
We should have you set up here in about 2 seconds.
Okay. Well, we've got plenty of time.
Great.
Okay. People are beginning to join.
Super.
And we'll get started in just 3 or 4 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Demo Loan Community of Practice webinar. Before we get started with the webinar on TippyTalk, just a few announcements. Please make sure you are on mute. Feel free to enter your questions in the chat window. As usual, you will be receiving a brief follow-up survey, and we request that you take literally 2 minutes to complete that. It helps us in planning our future webinars for this community of practice. Speaking of future webinars, I hope you have on your calendar Wednesday, October 2nd, where we'll be learning more about CaptionMate. Wednesday, November 13th, we'll be learning about Skoog. And on December 3rd, we'll be learning about Nous. I think it's Nous. I keep wanting to say the French pronunciation of new, N-O-U-S. So as usual, you can find out what events are coming up by going to the AT3 events page from at3center.net. Without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce you to Ronan Keene, the marketing executive at TippyTalk, and Rob Laffin, autism dad and creator of TippyTalk. Take it away, gentlemen.
Hi everyone. My name's Ronan. Thank you for that kind introduction, Amy, and I do appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy day to listen to what we have to say, show you how TippyTalk works, and we hope it's something that you see value in. So what I've done today, I've just made a little agenda, so we can run through with a little bit of structure. So first, I'm going to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me. Rob's going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about how the product was founded, and why he created TippyTalk. I will then run through a product demo, show you how it works. We'll talk about some user stories, people who successfully use TippyTalk. We'll jump into a little more detail on core functionality in terms of how we add more images, adding new people to the AAC. And we've also created a promo code for today's webinar, which I'll give a little more detail on further into the presentation. And we'll open the floor to some questions then at the end. If you do need more information and you just happen to stumble across the start of the webinar, I'd recommend everybody head to accessibletech.org. That's www.accessible-tech.org. And from there, you'll be able to contact some of our team, primarily me, probably. So, on the call today, you've got myself on the right-hand side in the lovely Rocky Mountain National Park and Rob in lovely Limerick City, Ireland. A little bit about my role with TippyTalk. My job is in marketing, so that essentially means it's my job and responsibility to make sure that TippyTalk gets to the right people at the right time. I work most days calling people and making sure that I give out as many free trials and as many TippyTalk licenses as I can, because I want to get it in the hands of the people that need it most. What I'll do now is I'm going to hand you over to Rob. He'll give you a little bit of background about TippyTalk himself, and then he'll hand it back to me for the product demo.
Thanks, Ronan. Hi, everybody. It's Rob here. Rob Lassen's my name. Thanks for that lovely introduction as well, Amy. Like Amy was saying, I suppose my main duty in life is I'm an autism dad, and I created TippyTalk originally from my daughter Sadie, who happens to be 9 years old today, September 11th, 2010. So why did I create TippyTalk? My background is engineering. In particular, is robotic engineering, and I had a background in sales as well in a former life. I returned to college pretty late in life, in around the same time that my daughter had got a diagnosis of autism, and she was non-speaking as well. So coupled with the technology that I was learning and understanding in college, and my own, I suppose my own journey with living with autism, I managed to come up with a little concept about how about if I could attach pictures that my daughter Sadie could understand into readable text messages. I wonder would that work? So I set about creating it. and I created what is now known as TippyTalk. The moment I knew I had something special on my hands was it was a pretty emotional moment for me. It's how I knew that this was going to work. My wife and I were deciding one day what we were going to have in a fast food outlet, and usually me and my wife would make the decision for our daughter on what to eat. And on this particular day, it was onion rings was the decision that was made. I jumped in my car and I drove about 2 or 3 miles from my home. And as I was going through the door of the fast food outlet, I got a text message, the first ever communication from my daughter. I got a text message from her that said, "Hi Daddy, I want chicken nuggets." So as I went through the door of the fast food outlet, I was pretty emotional. I was like, oh my God, my daughter's after communicating with me using the technology that I built. As I got to the counter, I got a second text message, "Hi Daddy, I want fries." So with that moment, I knew I had something special, and I decided I had something here that I could push out and give to other parents to give them their chicken nuggets moments. Because even though the communication may seem trivial or small to some people, when it comes to a parent like myself, even to get just that small bit of communication out of a loved one that's non-speaking, it means the world. I mean, it means the world to it altogether. Released the app version of TippyTalk in 2016 then, and overnight it became pretty successful with our version 1, which was one-way communication. That went into about 50 different countries. We had users in 50 different countries and available then in 17 different languages. Off the back of that, then we got a lot of educators, AT specialists, SLPs contacting me to see if I could enhance the product, see if I could deliver even more than what TippyTalk 1 was delivering. And the big thing that came back was two-way communication. Can we text the non-speaking person back in the form of pictures, sound, or written text? And I said, okay. And I set about that mission to create that product, which is the one we're going to be demoing here to today. So I'm going to hand it back to Ronan now. He's going to run through the whole process of how you send communication out from a non-speaking individual's point and from a speaking person's point back to the non-speaking person. Take it away there, Ronan.
Thank you, Rob. I'm just going to change screens. I want to make sure maybe Rob, if you give me a thumbs up to let me know that everyone can see that it has changed nice and smoothly. Perfect. So on the screen in front of us at the moment, I'm just moving my Zoom link out of the way so I can see the screens. Perfect. So we have two applications in front of us. Well, one application on two iPads, excuse me. So on the left iPad, we have the non-speaking individual social network on TippyTalk EDU. And on the right, we have the therapist, parent, SLP, the professional that person or the loved one that person needs and wants to reach out to. So if we take, for example, the left-hand screen as everybody that person needs to communicate or wants to communicate with. So we can have mom, dad, our teacher, our SLP, co-worker, whomever that person wants to communicate with, we can add them to their social network. And like Rob explained, it's a 3-step process, what we call agent, action, and object. So if we were to select an agent in this case, we'd simply select with our finger over Susan's image on the bottom right-hand corner.
Susan.
So as you can see and hopefully hear, and I'll explain how this works, when you select Susan's image, it brings you to a second page. And as you select Susan's image, a voice is read aloud from the application. That'll bring us to our second set of images, which are action images, excuse me. So I can say,
let's do.
And from the final page, I can select my object. So if I want to do my bubbles, blowing bubbles. You can see on the right-hand tablet, the message has been sent instantaneously. Now, what makes TippyTalk unique is that, first of all, the first version of our product is unique because it was to our knowledge, at least I would hope if somebody could jump in and tell me if there are other applications out there that offer this platform, but we're the first AAC that allows for out-of-room communication. So fantastic products like Tobii Dynavox, PEX, Prolo, Quo, they're amazing products. They're absolutely fantastic. But we're the only one that offers out-of-room communication. So if you're using traditional AAC, for example, there are parameters that mean you're going to be exclusively communicating face-to-face. If I leave the room, essentially my voice has been taken away from me, my AAC, with traditional AAC, whereas TippyTalk empowers you to use it outside of the room. Now, once when we first created a product, it was one-way communication. So the message receiver could not respond. Right now we can respond, as Rob detailed, so we can respond in 3 different formats. So we've got our voice recording, which is an audio message that we send personable to that message. We have an image that we can send back. So if we were to click our images, excuse me, let me cancel this. We can go into our camera roll and we can respond with images that are relevant to that person and are appropriate for that person's intellectual abilities. If they have the comprehension to understand a readable message, we can send back a text as well. So right now I'm going to send back a voice recording. So I just take my iPad, excuse me 1 second, and let's do bubbles. Sure, let's do bubbles. And as you can see, once the message is received, a big green box over the person who has received the message is an indicator that there has been something received. To play the message, you simply select that person's image.
Sure, let's do bubbles.
You can then reply, or you can start a new communication. So this is what makes TippyTalk unique. That allows people to communicate outside the room and break down the barriers of communication. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a couple of user stories of people using the app in real life situations. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to hand you over to Rob, who's going to talk about a couple of people who've used TippyTalk successfully over the last year or so.
Thanks, Ronan. Yeah, there's so many stories that have come in over the last couple of years with success using TippyTalk, especially when it came to like Ronan was saying, communicating outside the room, where initially the non-speaking person would have been kind of tied down to communicating within that room. And this one springs out of my mind an awful lot. This was a mother and son who were based in Cincinnati, and the woman's name was Sue, and the little boy's name was Joshua. So Joshua has autism, and he's non-speaking, and Sue was blind. So the connection there with communication was very, very difficult at the start when Josh was just trying to communicate with his mom by handing over pictures. Sue couldn't see these pictures, obviously. So what TippyTalk allowed Josh to do was to text his mom in the form of using pictures, but when it was sent to Sue's phone, the text was read aloud to her. So that was very, very unique in that sense. Sue was also from Korea, so her parents were still back living in Korea. And Josh was now able to text his grandparents as they were living in Korea when he was back home in Cincinnati. So TippyTalk allowed this connection for Josh to build out socially, to connect with his grandparents, to connect with his mom, who also suffered with her own disability. You got another one there, Ronan?
On the screen now, Joshua and Sue are communicating using TippyTalk version 1. So you can see that Joshua touches the screen. There's a big green box to indicate the message has been sent. Positive reinforcement in terms of the jigsaw piece being received. Sue then gets the text message to her phone, which is read aloud, so she knows what Joshua has communicated, which is absolutely amazing for us. We were blown away when we found out this story. And it all came down to the hard work of their SLP, Tanya Westcott, who's based in Ohio, I think, Rob, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so moving on to our next user story is, my app is Jamie. So Rob knows Jamie extremely well, so I think it'd be poignant of him to take over from here.
Absolutely. So this is Jamie, a young man very, very close to my heart. Excuse me. Jamie is about 18 years old now, and he's from a little city in the United Kingdom called Newcastle. Jamie was a pretty established user of TippyTalk really, really fast. In particular, he was very fond of soccer, and Jamie was linked with his soccer teammates using TippyTalk. He was able to text these guys small little messages like, what time is the game on? Are we going for pizza afterwards? And stuff like that. He was able to text them, should I bring my soccer boots? Should I bring my soccer jersey? And all that kind of went along with communicating with his now new friends, because he was able to interact with them in TippyTalk. Jamie's mom had messaged me a couple of months after he started using TippyTalk successfully, especially with his soccer teammates, that Jamie got invited to his first birthday party because he had built up that social network and that social communication with these newfound friends. She expressed that he would have never been able to get this birthday invite had he not been connected with his newfound friends using the device. Jamie is one of our, I suppose, our champion users. He's got up to a stage now where he's communicating independently using TippyTalk. I think it's over 350 or 360 messages. His social network is, like you said, his soccer team, his parents, his brother, his grandparents, and also other extended family members as well.
And our final story, Rob, is someone close to you as well.
Yes, this is Demi. This is Demi, a beautiful young lady. Demi is based in Dublin, just not too far from my home city. Demi is non-speaking and has been her entire life. She is 21 years old now, and she was introduced to TippyTalk when she was just a couple of weeks shy of her 19th birthday. Demi was sick one evening, and her mom had introduced TippyTalk to her really briefly, trying to get her used to the system. Demi successfully communicated out to her mom that the first thing she asked for, she looked for a hug. She put straight after her mom. Since then, Demi has introduced TippyTalk into her care home setting, where she now communicates out to her care assistants, and also she can communicate back to her mom, who's living back at her own house in Dublin. I love Demi, she's great.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So as per our agenda, the user stories are just to give you, I suppose, a little touch point of some of the lives we've affected over the TippyTalk journey. Right now, we've had about 10,000 people use the app since our inception. We're available, I think it is, in 50 countries in about 16 languages. Language has never been a barrier for us, really, because there's the ability to edit all the text that's in the app. So I can run through that now. As I said, I touch on core functionality. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of the back end, as you put it, the app. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. Okay, so I'm just back on the app. Just make sure that perfect. So the beauty of TippyTalk is that we're cloud-based. So that is, sorry, I could hear a little bit of feedback there. Did somebody have a question? No, perfect.
I don't see anything in the chat box.
Perfect. Well, feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. I'll be happy to jump in and answer them. So as I was saying, TippyTalk is a cloud-based application, which is huge for us. That means if somebody breaks their iPad, loses their iPad, loses their Android device, we can just pop in our login details and all the information and images will be preloaded onto that device again. So it's not the case where well, let's say if you have a dedicated device in school, you can also use the same TippyTalk credentials at home. All you have to do is log in with the same login information. We're also cross-compatible, That means you can communicate from Android to iOS and back and forth without having the confines of being on strictly iOS. So I'm just going to show you some of the core functionality here. So if I go back out, you can see here on the right-hand tablet, these are people within my practice if I was an SLP, for example. I could have somebody who's a senior citizen, maybe suffered a stroke and is having difficulty communicating. I could have a young gentleman who may have an autism spectrum diagnosis and somebody who's trying to get employment, all of whom are non-speaking, but I can edit all of their images from my device. So I don't have to take the device off the person to be able to edit all of the images within the app. If I did want to edit the image, I'd swipe out from the left. I'd simply select one of the icons, particularly the one second from bottom, which is our card box. We simply select the cards. From here, I can select class or individual basis. Now, this essentially means if we had 10 people in our school district or at our AT Center who were lending out and use the same images, we can edit on a mass basis as opposed to individually. So, for example, if I hit class cards, this is just going to let me know that if I edit any of the cards now, it's going to affect all the people on this license who are non-speaking. So if I want to edit the do, for example, I can simply select the pencil icon. From here, we have a couple of options. We have a display text and SMS text. What the display text is the text that the non-speaking person will see on their device. The SMS text is what you'll receive to your phone when they select the images. So this is what we call our action page. So if I wanted to edit any of the language here, I can change it to let's do, for example. And I can also put restrictive times. Restrictive times are essentially there to limit the ability to access things like, you know, cookies at 2 a.m. or your teacher on the weekend, or mom and dad through school time, or whatever is appropriate to that individual. We can also edit sounds. So as you heard when I played the first communication, each and every image has a sound associated with it. Each and every sound is individually recorded to make it more personable and to try and encourage positive reinforcement when selecting that image. So for example, if I was to select my own image, Ronan, I would hope to have my voice recorded over it to make it more personal and again, reinforce that positive message that it's somebody you know and it's a familiar voice associated with each and every image. So if I wanted to edit, I simply select save. So restricted times, okay, so I'll clear the times. There we go. So that's changed already. For that to be reflected within the app, you have to refresh the app. So if I close out of the app,
email the lady into the room.
so if I select Susan, that should say let's do and not do from now.
Susan.
So you can see up the top left, it says let's do. As you can see, some of the images we have in here are, you know, standardized images. Some of them are custom images that we've created ourselves, such as I would like. And others are real images that we've taken from, you know, day-to-day life within that non-speaking person's world. So what we find absolutely amazing about TippyTalk is its ability to adapt to that person's needs. So if that person is using a certain set of symbols, images, and you have them backed up on your camera roll, you can use them. Commercially, we don't have any strategic alliance with anybody who we can, you know, license images throughout the TippyTalk journey, but these discussions are underway, so we hope to have them within the next 60 to 90 days. We can't offer them commercially, I must hammer that home, but you can use them if that's something that you use day to day within your world. So let's say, for example, these are the images we have, I would like, I want, and things of that nature. So if you wanted to add people to that social network, it's as simple as adding a new card like I just explained. So if we needed to add, let's say, Ronan to that person's social network, I'd simply swipe out from the left, I'd select the person icon down the very, very bottom left corner. Press OK. And from here, I can decide who I'm going to add to the social network. So I'm going to add somebody to Tom's network. I scroll down, I simply select Add Message Receiver. And from here, we have a two-step safeguard process. So first, you have to verify your email. And second, you have to verify your mobile phone or your cell number, excuse me. This is important to us because we want to ensure that there's absolute safety and transparency as to who's in that device. So nobody can access your non-speaking person's social network without the two-step verification process. So the email must be verified first, and a SMS text message, what that will do is send you your login credentials, which are password, your email address, and a link to download TippyTalk edu. Okay. So if we were to add Ronan, I'd pop in my email address at the top, my display text, I'd add my image here, and I would add my sound. And it's as simple as that. So I'm just going to exit edit mode here. Perfect. So there's another thing I'd like to show everybody because we're cloud-based. We have what we call the Therapy Center. I'm just going to swap my screen again here just to make sure everybody can see it. Okay, just making sure everybody can see my screen. So this is our Therapy Center. Now what the Therapy Center is, it's essentially a place that all the information sent to and from that person's TippyTalk edu account is saved and reported on. So what we have the ability to do is we can tag the sentiment of each and every message sent to and from that person's TippyTalk account. So we can say, you know, Jeff was expressing frustration 4 times this week. Is this the antecedent to the challenging behavior we've experienced on a Thursday morning in the classroom? You know, he's said at home 5 times that he's had a toothache. How do we track what's going on in his AAC world? So what we can do is we can head into Tom's account. So you can see we have food, place, and emotions. Right now, these are just holding categories. In the next 28 days, we're going to have the ability to make custom categories. So you'll be able to individualize each and every report and individualize the sentiment of each and every message sent. So if we click into Tom's profile, there's a couple of different things we have in here. So first of all, we have a list of the message receivers. So you want to see who has access or who your client can communicate with. So we can see that we have mom, the coworker, all the people we saw within the app earlier today. We have our SMS history, which is every single message that is sent to and from that device. So like I said, we can see, look, somebody's been, our student has been communicating out frustration the last couple of days and nobody's responded. Of course, this is going to lead to challenging behavior. So you can see Susan, who's the account I was using, just takes a moment to do a little bit of loading. Excuse me now. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So you can see the last couple of messages we sent. Let's do water table. So they were the previous messages we sent on today, and somebody sent a cute picture of a dog. So we've got reports as well. What our reports are right now, these are just holding reports. Like I said, these are going to be customized. Right now, these are just standardized to food, place, and emotions. Within the next 28 days, these are going to be built out so you can generate custom reports for each and every message sent. What we also have the ability to do is track our message time response. So you can say, you know, how quick did Ronan respond today on Susan's profile? I have a 0 response time. That means I'm doing awesome. I'm responding almost within a minute. So if it's under a minute, we don't report because it doesn't make much sense to you. That means you're doing a great job. But if it's 40 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, okay, there's some red flags that we need to keep an eye on. What we can also do, and this is huge for us, we can add all our images from our therapy center. So you don't need to be able to edit images from in-app because it can be quite frustrating for me anyway, to do anything in a tablet. I don't like typing in a tablet. So like, I absolutely love this feature that I can add everybody's image from my laptop, from my Mac, and I don't need to actually take out my tablet and start typing and, you know, taking screenshots. What I can do is I can add new cards here. So if I needed to add a new card, I'd simply select a card. I add the text, say new card. Oh, excuse me. New card, and to add the image, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have a commercial license for some of the large symbols, but what we can do is if we use the symbols, of course, I'm sure you can use them within different settings. So I have a folder created just for images that I'm uploading for my own personal reasons. I simply select done. What I'll do is I'll put a start and restrict time if it was an item that I didn't think was appropriate during certain hours. I'll edit sound in, which is actually compulsory with each item that you add with TippyTalk. So I'll just call this shirt. Now that one, let's change this, that doesn't make sense. So I just have to refresh it, and that should be there then. It's going to give it a quick refresh if you don't mind being patient. Now I'm just going to log in again. Excuse me, that must have logged me out. That's my own error. Manage cards. So yeah, so that card was added. My shirt card was added. So we can dig a little deeper into that, and we can add more subcards, which would be the final string of the sentence. So like I explained earlier, it's a 3-step process. So we've got our agent, action, and object. This section here will be our action side of things, excuse me, and our final step will be our object. So like that, it is a 3-step process to communicate. In our web portal, we can, move all the cards in order that is most appropriate. So if I needed to move my shirt up, if this is something that the person really was motivated to use TippyTalk to communicate, we've moved that to the top of the list and helped them communicate. I know for Rob anyway, when he was introduced to TippyTalk with Sadie, her raisins were at the top of the list, of being honest. Sadie loved the raisins when we were introducing TippyTalk first. So that's how I kind of know some of the tips and tricks to get TippyTalk introduced, is watching how Rob did it with Sadie. And we've tried to scale it up to be usable for everyone. And we know each individual is different and unique, and it's going to take a different approach to be implemented with each and every student. But there is a couple of tips and techniques that Rob's used that we'd be happy to share with anybody over the course of time. That's kind of the core functionality covered for now. What I will say is that we have a couple of future endeavors that we'd love to share with you. I'm just trying to move on to my final slide. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share one final story before we go, and it's kind of, how would you describe it? It kind of is a good example of how diverse TippyTalk is for helping people with all different disorders, whether that is somebody who's suffering from aphasia, somebody who has a diagnosis of autism. So I just encourage Rob to jump back on and share your story, Rob, as well, about Minnesota and how that all happened.
Sure, Ronan, no problem. Yeah, interesting thing, part of my journey, I suppose, with TippyTalk is I actually suffered my own traumatic brain injury back in 2017 in Minnesota. I took a fall and fractured my skull and developed multiple brain bleeds and stuff like that. And yeah, I was in hospital for about 6 weeks in the US. While I was recovering, thankfully I recovered. I was moved to a brain and stroke unit in the hospital in Minneapolis. And while recovering on the brain and stroke unit, I noticed there was a lot of other people who were in there who weren't really going to get out of there and had difficulty communicating. And luckily enough, like I said, I was up and I was about, and I identified straight away that there was people who had stroke and other brain injuries just like myself, and they were left non-speaking. I spent most of my time in there recovering, but I also started introducing TippyTalk within the hospital as I sat there as well. I brought it around to 2 specific individuals. One was an elderly man. He'd suffered a very, very bad stroke. I set up TippyTalk, and one of the things that the nurses and the hospital staff were really interested in was seeing what kind of a level of pain that the person was in while they were in their care. And I remember they had a pain chart they used to show to me, and I would have to point to the number of pain from 1 to 10, scaling what level of pain I was at. I took the exact same imagery, put it on TippyTalk, and introduced it to this gentleman who was non-speaking. Within a few minutes, he was able to communicate directly out to the hospital staff at the desk outside in the main hallway via text message that his pain level was at a certain level. It was at 3 or 4 or whatever he was communicating at that time. I was able to introduce TippyTalk to another guy who was in the hospital, and he had suffered a brain injury, the exact same thing. It was all the pain scale. Is what when we were recovering in the hospital, it was the one visual that the hospital staff used us all regularly. So straight away I noticed that yeah, TippyTalk is a little bit more than just a product for autism and for children with autism. Yeah, so once I got out and I started getting better myself, I brought this information to the TippyTalk team, and we decided to go ahead and see how much of an effect this can have in this aphasia, stroke, and traumatic brain injury side of this as well.
Thanks, Rob. Just to conclude and stick to our agenda here, I just want to press home that, like, for everybody who's attending this webinar, there is a promotional code that is available for everybody. So the website to visit to enter the promotional code is www.accessible-tech.org, and the promo code is AT3. If you click the contact us page, you'll be able to fill in the details here. Now what that offer entails is we're giving everybody who attends this webinar a free license for your AT Center clinic practice for 90 days. So what does that mean? Or 60 to 90 days, depending on how long you need it for. So what does that mean? That essentially means that if you have 4 or 5 people come to your center during that period, you can give out 4 to 5 TippyTalks for that amount of time, or them amount of licenses for that amount of time, excuse me. All we ask in return is that we have a time commitment, not monetary time. All we want is the ability to communicate with somebody in the AT Center to show them how it works, get them all trained up and make sure they're confident at introducing TippyTalk to somebody and showing them how it works. So that's all we really ask for, is just a time commitment, and you can have TippyTalk for 60 to 90 days, depending on how your lending library works. So if you give somebody and it's a 3-week loan, they can have it for 3 weeks. So we can work out whatever's most flexible and beneficial for you guys. In relation to statewide programs, that's something else. If we were to continue the conversation, we're available on the TEP program in Wisconsin, which is the Telecommunications Equipment Purchasing Program, which means we are available for a $100 copay for an iPad and TippyTalk EDU. We're also on the STAP program in Texas, which is free actually. So you get TippyTalk EDU and you get an iPad for free. The only drawback of the Texas program is it takes 6 months, but in my eyes, that's understandable for something that is free. So if there's nothing further from my end, Rob, I'm not sure if you have anything to add. What I would say is Accessible Tech is our reseller in the United States. We have a shared office space where we host all our companies in the office, our products that help people who have an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis. So we have TippyTalk, and we have one of the companies actually who are coming on here in a couple of weeks, School. We have Boogaloo beds, or sensory beds for people, and we have Optimize, who help corporate clients hire and retain neurodiverse people.
Thanks, Ronan. I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who's come along to watch this webinar today, and thank you very much as well, Amy, for allowing us to present today as well.
So does anybody have any questions? You can either take yourself off of mute or you can type it in the chat box. I did have one question.
Please.
Whether you need to sign in, log in anytime or every time you turn the device on?
No, just when you log in initially. So let's say, for example, if I go back to my device here, if I close out of TippyTalk and click it again, it stays logged in unless I manually log out here. It's just down here in the bottom left.
Okay, and the same thing when it's turned off?
Correct. Yeah. I reset this just before the presentation because my screen sharing for whatever reason had a hiccup. So I'm glad I tested everything.
Great. We have a question from Angela. Yes, the recording of today's webinar will be logged on the AT3 Center website. If you go into the Demo Loan COP page, you can find all of our recorded webinars for viewing. And then actually, this is a follow-up question.
Please.
What training materials are on the TippyTalk website?
So right now, the training materials are based on version 1. Our training right now is a hands-on approach. We have a lending library document that gives you a step-by-step guide as to, if I was a parent that came in to say, can I try out TippyTalk? You'll get a PDF that you can print off yourself. It's like 6 to 8 pages, I think, off the top of my head. What that entails is you'll have your license, first of all, you'll have your login details. You'll also have tips and tricks how to, introduce TippyTalk. We'll also have an introductory guide as to the functionality of TippyTalk, and we also have help with funding. So we're doing our level best to be on every state program and telecommunications program. Right now it's 2, but we are gaining a lot of momentum when it comes to getting on other state programs.
Great, thank you for that additional information. Any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, we can adjourn today's webinar. And thank you, gentlemen. And I'm sure that we all look forward to getting our hands on the program and trying TippyTalk ourselves. So thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Amy.
And stay tuned for the evaluation, and in a couple of days for the archive to be posted. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Okay.
Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.